Hello, welcome to the next episode of the Powerless Podcast. In this episode, I talked to Kat, Benjamin, and Alex, who are the trio behind the genre-bending, pop rock, pop punk, indie rock, etc. band Kat and the Hurricane, who just put out their debut full-length LP, Got It Out, on October 4th, so just this past Friday from this recording. Kat, Benjamin, Alex, and I talk all through the kind of songwriting process for this record, what it was like working with their producer, Matt LaPlante, kind of the give and take there, and how that was really formative for the project, not just for this record, but all in all, as Matt's been their producer for a lot of their releases. We talk about the collaboration in the band and how each one of them contributes to the lyrics. Each one of them has contributed to a lot of the different facets that has gone into the songwriting of this 10-track LP. We do a track-by-track breakdown, asking each one of them, depending upon who initially wrote the lyrics or were kind of the masterminds behind the lyrics, what each song was about in the background there, and everything in between. It was great to have Kat, Benjamin, and Alex on. I had a really great conversation with them. Again, for anybody that doesn't know, we also live stream these recordings for the most part, so this was live streamed on the Monday previous to this release as well. So make sure to follow on twitch.tv/thepowerlesspod. You can email me at thepowerlesspod@gmail.com. There's a Patreon. There's also a merch store where you can get things with the logo like I have in the back and this banner, on cups, t-shirts, hoodies, etc. I think you can get hats. I need to double check that. But you can find all those links in the link tree, both in the notes of every episode, as well as on all the social media platforms, which is just at the Powerless Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. I don't really use the Facebook, so I don't really go there, go elsewhere. But you can find all those links there. You can also find the links to Got It Out, the new LP from Kat and the Hurricane, in the notes below, as well as on their socials, which is at Kat and the Hurricane on every single social media except for Twitter, which is Kat T Hurricane. And again, all that stuff will be in the notes. Great conversation with Benjamin, Kat, and Alex. I won't keep droning on here. I've done my whole spiel I usually do. So let's just get into the episode of us breaking down Got It Out, the debut LP from Kat and the Hurricane, a genre-bending band out of the Madison, Wisconsin area.
Secondhand smoke and rum on my clothes, I can still smell him. Is this the caffeine and alcohol in my blood? Or is it some kind of divine punishment? 'Cause I said I'd be okay this time. I tried, I lied, I still get high off of coming undone.
Also, don't worry about like fitting into a little square too much, because like when I edit this, obviously it'll be the full 16:9 most of the time, going back and forth. So don't worry about that too much. That's all the editing on my part. You guys don't have to worry about it.
Okay, cool.
I mean, we can be close. We've been close, but
Yeah, I'm sure. You know, as it goes, being in a band,
Yeah.
right? Well, thanks for jumping on and doing this. How are you all doing today?
Good.
Good.
Coming down from the album release party high.
Yeah.
we just
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny, you know, we were initially going to do this a few weeks before the album came out, so it would have been slightly a different conversation probably, right?
yeah.
It's got to feel great, just like the whole weekend had to be a little bit of a high with the release, you know, especially with the build. Like, I see from your socials that we'll get into all this later, but caffeine and alcohol already hit over 100,000 just on Spotify, right?
Yeah.
That's insane. That's so cool. It's well deserved. It's well deserved as well, I do have to say. But it was cool to see that. I was like, I wasn't expecting that, but I think you all deserved it. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. It
It's
was a
currently
yeah.
at 106,926 streams, and there are 4 people listening to it right now somewhere in the world.
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. That's so cool. I love seeing, because again, I was gonna get into this more like later on, but this is how things always go when I get started. This album, Benjamin knows this pretty well, that I you know, because you and I have known each other off and on throughout the years. I listen to more like typically aggressive. I listen to everything. Everybody says that, right? But like my go-to in the car is like metalcore, breakdowns, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I always love when I find a band that isn't in that realm that I find myself throwing on just as much. You know what I mean? because I think I'm a little more picky on like pop rock or general like indie rock, or you all are all over the place with the genres, which we'll also get to. So it's kind of hard to pigeonhole you there as well. But, this album, especially since I've had it for a few more weeks than everybody else, which I'm very spoiled with, I just keep going back to it. It's obviously I was doing that for prepping this, but also I found myself, I'm a teacher, and in my classroom, I found myself doing paperwork or working with kids or whatever. I'd be like humming a song, and it wouldn't be like one of the pop songs the kids throw on. It'd be Caffeine and Alcohol, or it'd be on my way back, the ones that you can really quickly pick up the hook, because it's way more with On My Way Back, because it's like that one line as the chorus. I'd be humming that, and actually a couple of my students were like, what are you listening to? And I'd show them your Spotify, so it all worked out. That was pretty cool. So again, I should remember that I'm setting this up for a recording too, not just the live stream, but I'm here with Benjamin, Kat, and Alex of Cat and the Hurricane. I guess I'll just throw like a genre bending, rock band for trying to, like I said, trying to pigeonhole you all is pretty rough to do. Got everything from sort of like pop rock, pop punk anthems to more like singer songwriter, somber songs, to some, really cool, essentially like hip hop track and costume, some experimental sounds, everything in between. So again, happy to have you all on here. I thought what we would do today is, break down the album. Benjamin was nice enough to send over the lyrics, and with that document, it also shows me who wrote the song, lyrically, as well as the song itself, kind of break down your songwriting process, what kind of went into specifically this album as opposed to your different releases. I know the last time Benjamin and I talked for an episode that you and I did a while ago now, I think it was like 40, 50 episodes ago now. We talked a lot about Sorry That I'm Like This, and that was kind of your start in sort of the collaboration with the music. So we can go from there and kind of see what songwriting is like for you all, where the lyrical inspiration is. Obviously, I read your press release, so there's a lot of background there as well. So yeah, just that's my rambling there, like I do at every beginning of one of these things, just kind of breaking down the album lyrically, songwriting, all that good stuff. But the first thing I kind of like to do with people to kind of break the ice, and also it selfishly helps me find out about new bands, because I, like a lot of people, I tend to listen to the same 5-10 artists a lot over and over again, is we'll go, Benjamin, Kat, and then Alex, have each of you maybe tell me who is on your Spotify on repeat or equivalent of, maybe a band, whether it's the Beatles or a local band you play with, a band you'd like to shout out, or a band that, has kind of been in your ear a lot. Doesn't have to be a band, also just artists in general. But Benjamin, we'll start with you. What's sort of an artist or singer that you've been listening to a lot lately?
Yeah, I love this question. Okay, one for me that is always on repeat, that I will always shout out, is the band Future Teens. They're from Boston area, and they're like my favorite band. They're just they do a lot of what I think Kat and I do, with having kind of two vocals like swapping, and their harmonies are just so good. They write this kind of nostalgic rock that's kind of harkening back to that, early 2000s, that we're also kind of drawing from, touching on kind of similar themes of like mental health, and they're just a lot of fun. I've seen them live only once, but they are great. And they have a couple new songs out this year that have been very on repeat for me. But a local band that is also in my on repeat that I'll shout out, Kat is wearing their merch. There's a band called Would You Kindly, and they just had an album release party the day after we did. They're from Kenosha, Wisconsin, and they
nice.
Also are very kind of genre blendy, more on the, they've toured with metal bands, and they also have played with us in sort of the pop rock space, so they kind of span that, but they have live strings and it's guitars, and they're just really, really good and very professional, very fun people to be around. So
Awesome. So Would You Kindly from Kenosha, and then Future Teens, two bands I have not listened to before that I just followed on Spotify. So again, this is all just for my own selfish, like, branching out of music, but appreciate that. Awesome. Kat, go ahead and tell me another band. It could be the same one, I guess.
Sure. No, you didn't. Okay. So a reoccurring band that I've been listening to for years is Bad Bad Hats, and I just got to see them again for the God, it just feels like the 10th time, we'll say. in Madison, Wisconsin. And every time I see them, I always get the new album that they're touring on. And it's just been like a built up relationship of like, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Thanks for coming to the show. And just like a quick catch up. But they just put out this last one they put out is their self-titled Bad Bad Hats album. And that has been in my CD player since I bought it. So I listen to that quite often. All of their albums are just repeatable. Like you can just like put them on repeat.
Yeah.
They're just such catchy hooks and great chord progressions, good texture, and they're just great people. And they're from Minnesota. And then somebody on the more local level, I'm gonna plug our best friends in this community, Line, who are just like they've been our best friends for like just I don't know going on years and years
since the Libra era.
They come to all of our shows. We go to their shows. It's just like definitely like our siblings in this community, and they are cooking up, putting out an EP on December 5th, which is the day before my birthday. So it's like a cute little birthday surprise. But yeah, definitely check out Line. They have at least an EP and a live recording out on Spotify, and then soon to be another EP, which is a 4-track EP.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling me, because when I search that, of course, on Spotify, it doesn't pull it up super easily. Can you tell me like a song title they have?
Yes. So I think this is so funny because when I type in Line, it doesn't come up either. So I always have to remember I need to type in False Apathy, which is like, that was their single off of their first like EP that they put out from Choosing Sides. So that's how you can find them.
And their handle is Line Sounds Like on like social media.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, found them. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like, I started a band a couple of years ago. It's like me and a guy from Scotland, so it's purely like a recording project. And we were trying to figure out, and then we named it, it's metal, so we had to throw in the word dead somewhere, of course. And we named it Dead Inside, and then we were like, oh, that's a good name. And then next thing I knew, like I realized you had to search that. You had to search the name, a song title, everything else. Like the SEO was not in our favor there. So I just like, I know how that goes. And so I appreciate you giving me that. Yeah, I've got some homework already. All right, Alex, go ahead and give me your on repeat or equivalent of.
Yeah, so do you? My on repeat, it's funny, the second song on there is Inconsolable by Katie Gavin. The lead singer of Muna, and that's just like such, at least for me, like an influential like synth pop band. Their production is unbelievable. Katie Gavin, actually the whole band is just wonderful, but like Katie's voice is amazing, and so she's doing this solo project. And it's like, it's really good. There are like, I think 3 songs out, and Inconsolable is oh my God, I don't want to play it. I just wanted to see information about it. It's the, I think, 3rd single that she's released from her upcoming, is it a full album? Yeah, a full album. So I'm really excited about that one. Inconsolable is just like this cute little like country, I don't know, kind of ballad. And yeah, it's really sweet.
Very cool.
And then a local band that's on repeat is our friend Seesaw. I am super fortunate to hop in on the drum kit with them for their live shows every once in a while. So right after our album release show on Friday, I had to wake up super early to go play a festival with them an hour away the next day. So they're just really fantastic friends, similar to Line, very much like a sibling band in the community, and originally an indie pop duo, and now they play with a full band. But they still like do all their own. I think they record all their own music themselves, and they're just so talented. I so respect them as songwriters, and like. Yeah, they're just wonderful people and so fun to play with. So, yeah, they're on my repeat as well. It's pretty bitter.
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, I've got like a whole marathon of music to check out right after this, but in a good way. This is why I love doing this. And I just want to say a little bit with Alex. That is the definition of the unfortunate cliche thing that happens to drummers, where I have yet to talk to like a drummer in a band where I think that the episode I put out last week, the guy was like, oh yeah, I'm in this band, but I'm also filling in for this other one. And I'm doing this other one, but this is my band. And it's like, yeah, we sorely need to appreciate drummers
Yes.
because the grind is real.
Yeah. There was a moment there where I was in like 5 bands.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it's the curse of playing drums is fantastic, but it's just the curse of like the sort of apartment flat world that we live in now,
Yeah.
especially where it's really rare to find somebody that had space at one point in their life to have a drum set at home, even, right? So
Yes. I agree.
so yeah, we appreciate the drummers. Hats off to you.
Thank you.
But thanks for going over all that. That gives me a lot of great music, both larger artists that I haven't listened to because they're a little out of my typical wheelhouse of genres I go to, and local ones. You're all from the Madison area. I'm from Northern Illinois, so I really appreciate finding bands within the sort of 2-hour driving distance, 3-hour driving distance that I can check out and hopefully go support locally as well. So thanks for going over that again. Talking with Cat and Hurricane today, we're going to get into the newest album, which is your debut album. I know you've put out EPs. There's sort of been and several singles over the past couple of years. It's sort of like the new iteration of the band overall, right? To get into the album, here, let me pull up my notes here real quick. Got It Out, which again came out this past Friday. As I said before, you've had songs together. You put out one that I thought did really well overall for streaming and all that kind of stuff, which isn't the end all be all, but Sorry That I'm Like This, which is what got me really hooked into the band. I'm sure a lot of other people for the first time heard your music that way. But in general, kind of looking at this album overall, you talked about in your press release that, you talk about a lot of mental health, importance of accepting and expressing yourself and expressing your feelings. I find that a lot in the lyrics. There's a lot of things within the lyrical aspect of this album that is very like, I think anybody can connect to it while you're also not using generic lyrics at the same time, which I always think is a good mark of a songwriter, right? That you're not going for like the lowest common denominator. Let's appeal to literally everyone with all lines to where's the most generic thing ever. But at the same time, writing something detailed about your own life that other people can connect to in different ways. Mm-hmm. So I guess in general, let's start with, before I always dive into the lyrics head first, and then I talk about those for an hour straight. Before we do that, what's the songwriting process for you all? Because I know in general, it seems very collaborative from what Benjamin said over again with the credits for the music, lyrics, all that kind of stuff. Seems very collaborative between you all. But what's the songwriting process like for you? Is it, Benjamin, do you go off and kind of write your own song? Kat, you write your own song, come together. Alex adds a lot of rhythm over the top of it. What was kind of the process like songwriting-wise for this record?
Yeah, I mean, with past albums, I usually have like a product that I bring to the table, and then I'm like, let's learn this and like let's build it up from the ground together because it just starts acoustically. But I feel like this album is a little bit different, because like Caffeine and Alcohol, for example, was you had written that in like 2017, right? So that's like technically one of the oldest songs in existence, the oldest song from the album, but it's just like, it's brand new now because we've just released it. And like, for example, Therapy is a song that I wrote in this room, actually, in the beginning of the pandemic. And was another thing that like, hey, I have this concept of an idea. It's like kind of finished, but like, what do you guys think? And so it's been a little bit of everything. And then, for example, like Sweet Thrill is a really good example of like co-writing with Alex. Alex had a bunch of lyrics and I was like, okay, cool. Let me see them. Let me see if I can, meld it into a song. And then that was our first co-write. And then we have Smoke, where I came up with the progression, but then these two did the lyrics. So this one is literally all over the place in terms of that, which is really, for me, exciting because for Miles Away and for Libra and for a little bit of the Sorry EP, most of those songs were written solely by me. And so it's very exciting to me to be able to come to these two and be like, let's like do this collaboratively, because it's not just about me and my experiences anymore. So I love that these two are bringing their experiences to the table, and that way we can all collaborate on it and really like shine a light on lyrics and chord progressions and just like writing drum parts. So I don't know, we're really like leveling up in that way, I feel.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And of course, that makes a lot of sense early on when you're doing this project.
labeled Cat in the Hurricane, that you would primarily be the, from the get-go, you're the writer, you have people come along, but it's cool that, you have this project that you were the sort of primary songwriter for a couple of years at the early iteration of it. And then you have no problem instantly adding collaboration, because I think like that only as long as you're open with each other and also willing to say, this is kind of a joke I heard from another episode that I did with a bigger band, where he was like, the biggest thing is we have to be, if we're going to collaborate, we also have to accept it. Like, I don't like that, let's try something else. Right. Or like kind of having that, like, no egos in the songwriting room, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. And it really does feel like this album felt collaborative, just as like a layman outside of it all, that each, as you say in your press releases, and everything else, that you do really bend in a lot of different influences. You have your own distinct sound. It's not like you're throwing in like a deathcore song on my, in the middle of it or something, but you throw in a lot of influences. You have the ebb and flow of Benjamin and you with the vocals. And I think it like that really adds to it, right? This kind of collaborative effort. That's really cool to hear. Alex or Benjamin, did you have anything else to add to that?
Not really. I'd just say like where one thing that I think why it has become so hodgepodge, to use that word, like, and which we see as a positive thing, is because this is also like kind of our pandemic album, which is weird to think about because it's 2024, but like we put out this Sorry EP, which was our last EP, which was our last original release in the summer of 2021. But those songs had already been in our live set for years, and it was just the first time that we really like, we wanted to put those together. And then starting even before that in 2020, we were working on the songs that became this album. And so we've been, like Swimming and Caffeine are both pretty old songs. And then there's some that are from 2020. And like over this stretch, there's some that we kind of built in the studio. So that's also part of the process, is how much the band has changed from when we were playing shows in 2019 versus now. Like we talk about like our enterprise of like, we've grown and we've just learned a lot of things. Like we are very DIY. We've learned how to do our own booking and management and making merch and like running our own website and all of these things that we've just learned on the go. And so that's also, I think, been the shift of, learning how to write as a band too, has been part of that. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Like this is the baby that shows like all of the ways that we've grown as writers and as, musicians and just as artists in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what I have to say again, just as a listener with all of this, is like, again, all the music, as I've said before, I've checked it out over the years. And this is just, I feel like whenever I say this, I have to give the caveat to bands, like all the music prior was fantastic, right? It was all great. I really enjoyed a lot of the songs, especially on the Sorry EP. That was one that, again, after I had kind of reconnected with Benjamin, a year and a half ago, I guess now, when we did that, it was something that I kind of kept going back to, especially when like it was like a good like driving EP for me for my commute. It was like the perfect length kind of deal. So I listened to it a lot over and over again. So it's all great. But this is like such a level up. I think maybe it's the production, maybe it's the whoever mixed and mastered it as well, that it sounds so big. And sonically is very like is just huge. But it just feels like a big step up for you all. But also in general, like over the past couple of years, it seems like your band, I don't know if it's like the work ethic you all have or whatever, but some of the little reels and stuff I'd see thrown up, or I was trying to look in your socials, and I'm just awful at finding things on social media. But you won an award like just a year ago.
Yeah,
or so.
exactly.
Yeah. We'll pretend I knew that for sure. It was like Madison Band of the Year or something like that, wasn't it? Was that kind of what the title was? Yeah. I mean, that's no joke. Like, that's insane. That's like big props to you. And then it's just, you get that recognition and then you put out this album. It just feels like big ups to you all. And I know this just sounds like I'm going to be complimenting you for about an hour while we do this, but that's fine, right? That's good, right? That's okay. But yeah, again, just I was blown away when I first heard this. The collaboration makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of give and take from from what seems like different influences. When it comes to kind of I like to get into the nitty gritty on some things because, I'm not as accomplished of a musician as you all, but I am like an amateur like songwriter musician, use a lot of different things in my arsenal to write songs. What was the recording process for this like? It looks like you worked with Matt LaPlante with both producing, and they also engineered, mixed, and mastered the record. Was it, I guess I always ask little things like, did you use live amps? Did you do a lot of amp simulation? Did you use programmed drums at all? Get as nitty gritty and nerdy with me as you want, I guess, because that's what I live for. I personally love all that kind of stuff. So just kind of speak to a little bit on the actual like mechanics of putting this record together. What was that like, and how did it differ from your previous releases?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, this was so different than our previous recordings because we worked with the same person, Matt, for our previous two EPs, the Libra EP from 2020 and then the Sorry EP from 2021. And we had also done Stay, our Rihanna and Mickey Echo cover with him as well. And so I feel like we've had like a really, really, I don't know, kind of like almost mentorship like relationship with him. He's been like super, super helpful and always like has shown a lot of really fantastic support for us and what we're doing. And so we wanted to work with him kind of as a, co-producer way, just because like, I don't know, I feel like he gets the vision, He gets it. And we wanted to have him more involved. One, because like, it's clear we really value each other as people working in the industry, but like also, we had not fully finished some of these songs. We wanted to work with him in the demo phase as well, which was a huge honor. And it was just so fun to like, just demo these songs together and just like have fun and kind of make like little scratch tracks and experiment in the studio. He had he recently relocated to North Carolina, but his studio here had just like so many little toys to play with. So a lot of the little, like some of my favorite sounds from the album were parts of like early demos that we laid down with him. Like the springy synths and Sweet Thrill.
That's a real Rhodes. I just have to.
That was a Rhodes.
Speaking of nitty gritty, he was like babysitting a Rhodes for somebody in the studio, and he was like, "Do you want to play it?" They said we could use it, and I was like, "Sure." And I was like, "Okay," and I was just playing around with it, and that's on the album. So it's just things like that where he had a physical space, and he would be like borrowing instruments from people or things, and he'd be like, "Do you want to play around with this?" And so anyways, continue.
No, just like the encouragement to play with like really, really amazing equipment and just experiment, and just his level of proficiency with like doing digital production, like just incredible. It just made the whole process like really fun, really easy, and really collaborative. So huge props to Matt. But yeah, like just want to, I don't know, set the stage for if there's anything else that y'all want to share, because that was just, I think, what made the process so different and unique and cool.
Yeah, I think for us, it's a little bit of a formula. So when we have a demo, we start with the percussion and like the acoustic guitars and get the bones down. And then we can start peeling that stuff away once we start adding more. And that's when the fun really begins, because that's when we can we can be creative and experiment. So there's a little synth like do part in Smoke that I was just looking to make a fill, and it ended up being one of my most favorite contributions to the whole album, because Smoke is like a general favorite between us and like many people that we know. I really like the song. So it's just like little earworms, little hooks like that we implemented, and that in even the demo phase, after the demo phase, we like still weren't able to get those out of our head. And even if we tried something different, it's like, no, we're stuck on this now, and we're gonna keep this, and we're gonna implement it throughout the whole song. We had a couple songs where we did some fun gang vocals where we were all standing around a really nice dynamic mic where we're doing like group shouting vocals for like therapy, and like
What Is It All For?
What Is It All For was unhinged. Like
the isolated stem for that is we're gonna have to put it on TikTok at some point.
Yeah.
It's live.
It's
I think
crazy.
that was like the last thing we tracked.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
And
it
we
was.
were so tired.
We
Yeah.
were done.
There was a period of like we got to hurry up and finish the tracking because he was relocating to North Carolina, so we we really crammed there for a minute, and we just like threw what we could at the wall to see if it could stick, and then like it wouldn't have been a problem because like if he needed to, he would come back and he did at one point he came back here to
that's
just
awesome.
capture some vocals, and we did it right in the front room.
Yeah, it was literally like the
Nice.
week of my top surgery.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I
Yep.
could just hang out, and Matt was sitting there with his rig, like, and we were recording you were doing the costume. Like, you had to relay
all of those vocals for costume was just done in the living room here.
Because that was the very last thing we did.
Awesome.
And
because you wanted to do something different than what you demoed.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, we've worked with him for our last 2 EPs as well. But for the Libra EP, Kat and I had been trying to track some of that on our own. And we did track pieces of it on our own. And so for that project, we were basically like, hey, can you help us finish this? Like, we basically have all of it. We just need help finishing it. And then the Sorry EP was like, we'd been playing those songs live for years.
Yeah, we knew
so we were like, we have these arranged. We know all the parts. We just need to track it. But this one, we really, like, we had songs that going into it, like Therapy, we were like, we amongst ourselves couldn't agree with, like, where does this song go at a certain point? And so we were like, can you help us, like, figure out what this sound. Caffeine and Alcohol had like 3 different iterations it went through.
Yes, it did.
And we were like going back and forth. So the process was very like, we took our time with this album. Like, we started tracking, I think the first song was I Wasn't Ready was like end of 2021.
End of 2021.
We started tracking.
Yeah. So, and the first song we ever started tracking was actually I Wasn't Ready.
Yeah. And
that
was
going to be a single after the Sorry EP. And then we were just like, we gotta let it cook.
Yeah.
Let it cook.
So that was like, we've been saying on social media, like, this has been a long time coming. It's because we've been telling people, like, friends and other collaborators in Madison, like, oh, we're working on stuff. It feels like we've been saying that for years, but we were really marinating on some of it, and like things went through a lot of iterations because we really wanted it to be the best, most cohesive thing that it could be. And we were kind of worried, honestly, that it would feel disjointed because there are like different genres. There's some songs that started as a song that I wrote on piano. There's some songs that started as a song that Kat wrote. There's like the hip hop song. And so we were like, this is going to feel really disjointed. But we really like sat with it and sat with the production, tried lots of things. And now I feel like we have this project that, though there is a lot of like genre variability, it does feel like a cohesive project in my opinion. And so that, yeah, I think that's just a testament of like, we tried things. There are so many WAV files that aren't on the album that we like tracked and did a lot of like editing to come up with the final project.
And there are songs we left like on the cutting room floor too. Like, we demoed a lot more songs than are on the album.
At least two.
And then there were songs that we didn't even think were maybe even gonna be on the album.
Yeah.
Or at least one song.
For a minute, we didn't know if Costume was gonna make it, but it felt.
I'm glad it did.
Yeah.
That song
It
rips.
felt right.
It's so
It's
good.
like this is the era in which it was written in, and it just felt right to keep it with this batch of songs.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about that is I think a lot of bands, when it comes to putting an album together, especially when you're spending a lot of, a couple of years, like you said, marinating on songs, tweaking them, having different iterations, there always seems to be one song, no matter who I talk to or where they're at in their musical career, that they're like, oh yeah, that barely made the record, and it ends up being one of the ones that people love the most. Or like several bands, it'll be like their most popular song, So it just goes to show, like you second guess certain things, but because maybe it doesn't, like you said, like it doesn't feel like it fits the rest of the genres.
Right.
But when you throw 9 full fleshed out songs together in your outro, as long as you have the same person mixing and mastering it, you can get away with a lot more than you think you can,
absolutely.
right? Like you said, it wouldn't feel cohesive. It's like, as long as you have someone that's mixing and producing, knowing what they're doing, you could throw anything at the wall, and as long as you spend enough time on it, it'll sound like it goes together. You know what I mean? To go back to a little bit of what you were talking about there before we kind of break down this, because all three of you have had a big hand in the lyrics from what I was going through. We could definitely break down some of the lyrical concepts and what like the whole theme of the album is and all those kinds of things. You mentioned, some of the songs you've done in the past you've kind of showed up with Matt and tracked him, especially the Sorry EP, where you had him, played him live over and over again. You're probably like, I could do this in my sleep, whatever, and we just would need to have high quality takes and all that kind of stuff. Do you sorry, excuse me. Do you find that like working, it seems like I already know the answer to this question because you're also collaborative with each other on the songwriting process, but do you feel kind of having like that more objective, like, out of the pocket eye, like a producer that works with you well, is sort of like the fourth member in some instances when you're recording, but also, it doesn't have the same sort of, personal subjective connection to the songs. Do you feel like that adds a lot to it? Where there are times where Matt, or one of you, when you were producing these songs, like were able to kind of get together and cut things out that meant a lot to you, like sort of that subjective feel to it? Like, what's that process? Do you, I guess what I mean is with this, do you like it more in the sense of like the Sorry EP where you have the songs together, you record them, you put them out, you have them set in stone? Or do you kind of like that push and pull of the creative process where maybe you feel uneasy when somebody says to take something out or change something, but at the end of the day, it maybe gives you a better product?
That's a good question.
We have had those moments, but I feel like we put a lot of trust in Matt. And for the moments when he was like, we should do this, like he's like dead set on like, kind of like trust me without saying like, trust me, we need to do this. And every time that we've gone with the decision that Matt thought was right, we haven't regretted it.
Yeah,
he did, and like there's been times, and he's a very, very he's very gentle in the way that he'll suggest things, because he'll be like,
that's nice.
My favorite,
he's
like great. And this just kind of, this is a personal anecdote, a little off to the side, but related, is that like he has helped me feel a lot more comfortable in the vocal booth, especially tracking vocals, because I've been very self-conscious about my vocals my whole life, and like learning how to be a better vocalist. Like he's very patient, where he'll be like, we'll do as many takes as you want to do, and he'll, I'll be like, am I doing this great? He's like, yeah, and he'll just like turn it on and let us go as many times as you want. Then when we're done, he usually uses like the first take, but then he'll be like, he was like, it was perfect the first time, or he'll say things like, what if you try this? It's gonna feel weird. If you hate it, we won't use it, but just for me, like just try it. And then every time we would do that, it'd be something that ended up being really cool. Sometimes we would do things, and this happened on Caffeine a lot, where he's like, what if we tried it this way? And we did, and then we'd be like, I don't like it. And he would be like, yeah, you're right, I don't like it,
Yeah.
But that push and pull, I think, has made us better musicians. And when I look back at the Sorry EP, I love those songs. And I think that project really is what started us to kind of on the trajectory where we are now. But I think there are some production decisions I would do differently.
Yeah,
if I could go back and 10. We almost didn't have, almost wasn't a chorus in Sorry until the second minute of the song. And he was like, you have to add a chorus here. And we were like, because the Sorry That I'm Like This refrain was originally like a post chorus. And he was like, that has to be just the chorus and has to happen like a lot of times. And we were like, I don't know, this is how the song goes.
Yeah, it's going to be longer. Are the people going to listen to the whole thing?
And he was like, no, it has to be like that.
And so, he was right.
He was right. Like that was the best call. So yeah, there were a lot of like little moments like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely times when we're like, no, it needs to be this way. Mm-hmm. But not that many, because he like, one of the things that's been fun about working with him on this project is has a very long credits list. He's worked in the industry for 2 decades, and he's done a lot. He's done everything, but he's done a lot, especially in the sort of harder rock metal sphere, and he's done a bunch of hip hop stuff. One of his bigger claims to fame is he was an assistant engineering on Lil Jon and Usher's Yeah track.
No kidding.
I don't
that's
think
awesome.
he's in the credits.
No, he's not in the credits.
He didn't make the credits.
So he's not getting royalties from it. But he was with Atlantic folks for a while, and so he's done a lot.
Yeah.
And so he has a lot of experience in sort of the harder rock space. But he's told us like doing that like kind of indie pop thing we're doing is something that he doesn't get to do very often, and he likes it.
Yes,
so we're kind of like a project where he gets to just like have fun, because he gets paid to do these other projects that are in different genre spaces. He also has also told us, I don't know if I should share this, but he has told that we're one of his wife's favorite bands to
It's
work with.
true.
Of all the bands,
cool.
There you go.
That's
that
really
he's
cool.
like, she's heard all the stuff I do, and she's always like, I really like Cat. So it's like that.
Awesome.
That also has helped build the trust of like when you're saying like try something this way. I know that you also have the like you understand the sound that we're going for, and he always, when we're tracking a new song, at the very beginning, he will always ask us to send him like songs on Spotify, like references of like the vibe that we're going for, or so that's always helpful.
And a fun fact. We made a playlist of songs to reference, and we must have given him like some notes at some point, like, oh yeah, maybe this song could sound like these bands or something. I don't know if we did that for this one, but we came back to record Smoke, and I think this was in the demo phase, and he was like, oh, you know that Yumi Zuma song that you put on the playlist? I really like that. We should do something synthy like that in this song, Smoke, and we did. Like, that's the Yumi Zuma song, fun fact.
Yeah, that's true.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I love that too because, listening to a lot of different bands of various genres and having people on over the years, like it is interesting. You say that the producer you worked with, Matt, has done a lot of stuff with like hard rock bands, metal bands. It's so funny how often on the flip side, I'll talk to some bigger bands like in the kind of post-hardcore metal genres, and like their best records, the records that they do the best with, is when they went to a pop producer.
That's funny.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, because it goes back to like what I was saying earlier, that like, you might have like certain genres you write more, or certain genres that you gravitate towards, like if you're going in your car, you're going to go on a run or whatever the case is. But a good song is a good song, and knowing good songwriting has no genre. You know what I mean? Like, especially in this day and age, it's all out the fucking door, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, like I joked earlier, not doing like not throwing in some heavy song or something like that. Like, a band like yours could totally do that in 2024 if they felt obliged. Like, it doesn't matter, as long as it's a good song and you're working with someone that knows good music. That's all. That the quality is all that matters, right? In the same vein of like, somebody shows you music that's like kind of out of your your circle that you typically listen to, as long as it's a good song and you're not a prick, like you're probably going to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, a good song is a good song is a good song. Someone that knows that, like Matt clearly does, like can add a big spin on that, and also probably bring in some elements that you wouldn't necessarily think of from say like a pop rock producer primarily, or whatever the case. I have to ask, I might cut this out. What's your cat's name? That's the cutest cat in the world. Okay, that's awesome. I like that we have 4 guests on.
Yeah, he's the cat on our t-shirt, and I'm sorry that I'm like this.
Oh yeah, he's a little mascot.
He's the hurricane.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. To go from that, and thanks for breaking that down. I always like to just kind of dive into those things as much as I can with people. I think a lot of people can find that interesting, just kind of the ebbs and flows of creating a record in all different capacities. We're going to get into what I always like to dive into the most, because I think there's a lot to say, especially on a full-length record, which is the lyrics, and not just the lyrics, but the kind of like feeling and concept you have behind the music, which tends to be at the forefront with the lyrics that you write, as well as the melodies and the feel of the music. So you guys don't mind, I'm going to go through and just do it. You don't have to spend forever on each song. I like to do that, but we don't have to spend forever on each song. But we'll kind of do a track by track here and just ask you all where the inspiration for the songs came from and everything in between. So first song kicking off, Therapy. Again, from a music standpoint, this one is a big driving anthem. I think right out of the gate, it lets people know that there's going to be a lot of energy on the record. It's a big hook. The gang vocals are awesome in it as well. It's obviously also got the title of the album in it, so that's where that comes from as well. This says, at least on the lyrical standpoint, this comes from Kat and Benjamin. Can you all just kind of speak to, I mean, with the title being Therapy, and reading through it and listening to the songs, I can get a little bit of what the concept is, but in your own words, speak to where the song came from. You said it was kind of a COVID song, yes, right? But kind of speak to where the song came from, what the inspiration was for it, and things of that nature.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned before, I distinctly remember writing that song in this room, because Alex and I used to live together, and we were living together at the beginning of COVID times. So it was very much of a lockdown situation for both of us. But I do remember that was around the time when I was first getting into therapy for myself, and I I I play guitar in standard, and then I also play guitar in open E. So this was an open E song, and
Nice.
the inspiration behind this was kind of it was like like the front bottoms sounding, because like acoustically that's where it started. And again, around the time when I was starting therapy, and the lines of what Ben sings, or well, you sing that live, but in the record I sing, I'm done writing songs about you if you don't count this one. That line, I think, was reminiscent of like the Libra era, because the Libra era was written about a time in my life and about a very specific person. So I think this was a callback to that time, of like, I didn't get it out completely. Turns out I have more to write about this specific person. And it also is just tied in with like, now I'm now finally getting to process some of these feelings with a professional, like a therapist. So I think that's how that came about for me. And I can't remember if I think I asked you this recently too, but if you had helped me write some of the lines of therapy.
Yeah, so what happened was you wrote the beginning, like, starts out as kind of like
I hope by now you've had some time.
It's sort of like the chorus, like it's I hope by now, and then you got it out. It's like sort of, but the melody changes a little bit as we go into the chorus. And so you had written that part, like that whole sort of first stanza up until the chorus, and then we knew, then you had like the other chord progression where it's like it's going to devolve into screaming, but we weren't really sure where to go from point A to point B. So you had brought it to us, and we were like jamming on it for months. I feel like
we worked on it
took a while.
Time. It was a tough nut to crack.
Because like we were trying to figure it out, and I had started writing this. What happens? We'll get to this with Smoke too. But like sometimes what will happen is, so Kat is self-taught on guitar, and like we'll write in open E, so it's like in a different tuning, and I will it's
just in the key of E.
So they'll just like
some,
they'll send things to me, and I'll be like, what chord are you playing? And they're like, it's kind of E, but it's like it's slightly different because just the way that they're playing. And so, and I'm, primarily a pianist. And so I'm like, looking for the chord patterns and stuff. And so we learned music very differently, which is why I think we write great together. But then, so I'll like take something that Kat sent me, and I'll be like, I'll write something to it. And then I'll realize that I'm playing it completely different than they were playing it. So then when we put them together, with that song, I was like, well, now I have this verse. Because I think when we were jamming, I came up with I'm done writing songs about you. And I was like, but that's a completely different melody. And that's one of the things we still weren't sure what to do with when we went into the studio. And I was like, Matt, so I started writing this other verse, but it's completely different than Kat's verse. And he's like, that's fine. Just like make it be a different verse. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So
not everything has to be synchronous.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay to
I think it really contributes to the songs, like, I don't know. It's this like disjointed kind of like campy.
It's campy. Of, like,
I love it. I absolutely love this song. I think it felt like to me, like when someone's first really trying to get something off their chest for the first time in like a scenario where it's not with someone that's like, a friend or a loved one you're confiding in. It's like someone's there to just like take your, whether it's trauma or angst or emotion or whatever, and their job is to actually listen to and help you, like, break it down or work through it. And yet, like, the song is very, the song, if you didn't analyze the lyrics, which, like, you so obviously can pick up on the lyrics in the song, like, there's nothing buried in there with what it's about. The song's not necessarily, like, a happy tune, but, like, it's an anthem that people can sing along to while they're, like, also wanting to scream in their car at the void, right? Like, exactly. It's I keep saying car. You can tell I listen to music and have a long commute every day. But no, I mean, I think that makes it's again a song I connected with because I've dealt with very similar things, I'm sure, as what you're just referring to there. And yet, like, it comes in this package of like gang vocals too, which I thought was a good touch on a song where, like, I don't know, maybe you didn't think about this or not, but like with therapy, it can oftentimes feel like such a singular task, like you almost don't, a lot of people don't necessarily want to discuss what they talked about in therapy with anybody else, even their like spouse or closest, and in some ways that's good. You could have your own space, but you've got like this anthemic gang vocals behind it, where it's also, I don't know, maybe I'm diving too deep into it, but it also felt like it's a reminder that like everyone else is dealing with these things, and also it's probably a good idea that everybody goes to therapy. So again, absolutely great song. I love that it was a big sort of pushing, hook heavy anthem out of the gate that also had something that people could like chant along to live. I thought that was really cool.
There's also a callback in there to "Sorry That I'm Like This." The da na na na, and then in "Sorry That I'm Like This" it goes da na na. So
yeah, I thought I heard something that like caught my ear a little bit like that, but I was just like, maybe I'm just listening to this record too much, like that kind of deal. But that makes a lot. I love when people, just like you talked about with the 2 lines in the second verse. I love when people do like a little callback that it might even be just you or like your friends or like the deepest listeners of the album that'll get it. But I just love that kind of like nuanced little like Easter egg in the music realm. I love that stuff. That's so cool, especially when you do it with like a little inner like melody. I think that's especially cool. Going from that, we go to Caffeine and Alcohol, which we just discussed. You said has over 106,000 streams on Spotify alone. It's a Ben Heavy song. I know I saw just from your own personal accounts when it first came out as a single, and that you had talked about this is a song that you put a lot into. And I think it's one that I personally connected with a little bit from things in my life as well, I think, from the inspiration. But you could dive into it a little bit. What was the kind of lyrical inspiration for this one? I know like you're at least listed on this document that you were nice enough to share over as the sole lyricist for it. So kind of speak to the background of this one, and just the details lyrically, or where the lyrics come from.
Yeah, so this is actually a song, that I wrote in 2017, like we said earlier, and I had been playing it solo as just when I was playing solo for years, and it's been one of my favorite songs, and I think one of the songs that people have always come away and been like, that's a really good song, and I don't know at what point I, wanted to had the idea of like, oh, let's turn this into like a heavier pop punk song and brought it to the band, but I know that for me, that kind of reflects like the angst that it's really coming from. And so I think it's fitting for the song because it started very piano ballad. And it started just a day that I was very hungover and I was writing about a specific situation that also I think encapsulates on a larger scale just a period of my life, which I moved back to my hometown after college. And that was like not plan A or B or C, but like plan D of what I wanted to do after I finished school. And so I ended up living with family and being back home. And I was only there for 2 years, but those 2 years were very long and very tumultuous years of my life. Emotionally, like I learned a lot, I grew up a lot, but I was definitely in this space, and we've talked about this a little bit when I did the episode with you before, but like, growing up in a religious space, like I then went off to college and kind of learned a lot of things about myself, came out as queer, like kind of really formed really meaningful friendships outside of that kind of insular space for the first time. And that really like opened up my world. And at the same time that like all of those things now I can say are healthy things, but at the time it felt really heavy because it's kind of like a worldview is crumbling, like the thing that's been safe. Right. Even if you identify the safe thing as bad, like it's still the safe thing. And so this song is kind of just like me processing, like, what does it look like? How do you cope with the feeling of something crumbling away? That it's good that it's crumbling away, but it's also, you're losing this sense of like safety of the platform that you were standing on. And so, I was like drinking for the first time and not anything like crazy, but there was just a day that I like realized and like, oh, why is it that every time that I drink alcohol, I get so just like anxious because I have all this like trauma that's coming out. And so that's what the song was about, of like, kind of tongue in cheek, but also very serious at the same time, of like, this is bringing up all these things for me that I need to process, which is how I ended up realizing that it really fits with the theme of therapy and On My Way Back and some of the songs that Kat was writing at the same time. But yeah, I don't know, just learning. It's also was written about a specific situation with a person in my dating life, but that like ended up, that meaning has kind of faded over time to, give way to sort of this bigger picture of just learning how to leave the things that no longer serve you and learning how to find the things that do, and how like tumultuous that process can be.
Yeah, I mean, I think thanks for going over that. I think this one again can hit for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're in my your situation a little different, but you're in my situation growing up in very strict conservative religious households, leaving that. And I had a very different experience. Mine was more like political, right? But like the same instance of like, wow, everything that I feel secure about I don't believe in. So I feel more honest now, but I also don't know what the fuck the world is, right?
Yeah.
And like trying to cope with all those things and trying to still like figure out what parts of you from that era are also still part of you,
Yeah.
right? Like, because you're not losing all of yourself when you're kind of just gaining more of yourself. But yeah, that's what I really enjoyed about this one. And I remember that specifically from when you shared the song as the single, talking a little bit about that, or you and I think maybe talked in a message or two about it, that I was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to love this one before I even heard it. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is just fantastic. So thanks for going over that again. Written about, like I said earlier, about good songwriting, written about a very specific thing for you, but you wrote it in a way that like, anyone that's gone through any sort of existential crisis or anything in between, from coming out to going off on their own to finding their identity in whatever way, like could really attribute to this. And writing it when you're, from this perspective of being a hungover, I think is just like the cherry on top of like super relatable. Trying to like work through things right after like a long night of maybe having a few too many cocktails or drinks or shots or whatever it is. I think something most of America at the very least can relate to.
And we're from Wisconsin, so it's
you're in Wisconsin. Yeah, we're in the Midwest. Like I think that's like what most people choose to do with their pastimes a lot of times, let alone in the live music scene, right? So it's very, very relatable. Going from there, we go to On My Way Back, which again, absolutely fantastic song. I feel like I'm gonna be very redundant on this. There's not a single song that I wouldn't rate it like a 9 or 10 out of 10 for what I enjoy about it. This one written lyrically, Cat solo, it looks like. I thought, again, I said this earlier, but this one, the hook gets in my head over and over again. And one thing I wanted to say from like a instrumental perspective as well is On My Way Back, and then I think it was What Is It All For? My brain is fried a little bit after a long day at work, but I think both On My Way Back and What Is It All For were ones that like sonically I thought were really cool, that it kind of felt like a big buildup, like where the song got bigger and bigger with either the chorus or like layers you were putting on or whatever it was that kind of really encapsulated the emotion. But I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I should stop talking. What's the background of this song? Where did it come from lyrically, and kind of speak to that?
Yeah, this one, I again wrote on acoustic guitar. That's where it started. This one, I for a while was like writing a lot of songs in open E, but this is one that was written in standard. So I was like trying to go back to standard tuning and see what else I could come up with. And around this time, I think I was listening to a lot of Lucy Dacus. So and when I play it acoustically, I feel like that kind of shines. But when we went into the studio with this one, never thought that this one would ever end up sounding the way that it would, which is just a really cool way of just taking a bare bones acoustic song and then building it from the ground up. And then for this one lyrically, yeah, it's pretty straightforward, of like just going out and living some life, and then at the end of the day, at some point coming back to a version of yourself that you know best. Because like, in our 20s, we go out and we, I guess how the kids say, fuck around and find out. But by the time you get to be 30, you're probably closer to being that version of yourself for the rest of your life. And so I think this encapsulates like what you go through in your 20s, whether it be trauma, whether it be good relationships, bad relationships, family, anything like that. And then at the end of the day, coming back to yourself and trying to like hold your former self and like give your former self some compassion for having gone through the things that you're former self has. And like the little bridge in there of like, help is scary but necessary. You never know what you may find. I mean, that kind of goes back into like things that you can find and experience when you go to therapy and you talk to a professional about feelings and getting stuff off your chest. And I feel like we all come from parents from a generation where it's extremely hard to ask for help. And I feel like we are all breaking the cycle in that of finally like stepping up to the plate and stepping up for ourselves and like asking for help when help is needed, even though that's still incredibly hard. But I feel like that in the handful of years that I've known all of us together as a trio, like, you know, we have grown in that way. So yeah, help is scary, but it is necessary because you can't really move forward if you can't do it all on your own.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like that's very relatable for people. You know, for people our age. I say our age relatively. I'm probably around your all age within like a 5-year span or whatever. Yeah. Well, I was to say I'm 32, so I'm the geezer. I got to go get out my cane, I guess, or whatever. But you know, it's so true. Like it's you know, that's what I thought this song was about. So I'm glad a few times I was able to read something and be correct about something for the most part. Was that which is a great mark for a teacher when I question that I can't read something and understand what it is. But just that kind of concept of breaking through, that it's okay to, it's kind of that cliche line from like a now debunked sort of pseudo like self-help non-for-profit of like, it's okay not to be okay, but it's more than that of like, it's okay not to be okay, and you also need to like, it's important that you find help, or it's important that you talk through these things, right? Because it's okay to like understand that you have issues going on or that you haven't dealt with things, but it's even more important to find someone that's more objective to work through them, because it can be like just from either like a, you know, quality of life for yourself, or like literally life or death for some people, breaking that edge off of like, it's okay to speak to somebody about like what's going on in my brain right now, or what's happened to me, or et cetera. So again, really, really great. I keep going back to this, really great relatable lyrics, and it does not hurt that the song is absolutely fantastic from a songwriting perspective as well. I don't mean to keep just barreling through these. Also, Alex, I know I haven't asked you about these at all, but like if any of you didn't write the lyrics, but you have something else to say about it, feel free to jump in as well. I think it's important to like hear that from the other band members as well. Next one, Was It All For? Which again, like I said earlier, felt like a song that just continues to build and build and build from a sonic perspective. Starts off like relatively somber, and then really kicks in. I thought it was going to be, I think this, like, again, like I said, my brain's like half alive right now, but this one felt like, to me, I knew where it was going to go, and then it ended up becoming bigger and more of like a driving song, a little more than I was anticipating, which was cool. This one, again, Kat, this was your foray here lyrically. Kind of speak to what this one's about as well. I think the title is probably pretty apt for what it is, sort of an existential crisis, right? But go ahead and speak to this one, and also, you know, where it kind of comes from in the background for you, you know?
Yeah, this was another song that I wrote when I was living here with Alex, and like I said, going back to the beginning of COVID, you know, the initial lockdown in March, and then you look at the next month, which was April, and specifically for us here, we knew that we needed to stay home. That's what the right thing to do was, until we could figure out what the hell was going on. Yeah. But at the same time, we had an election happening. Like, we had it was a primary. We had a primary election here happening in April of 2020, and people were still expected to go out and vote. And all the while, Robin Voss,
full in PPE and everything,
sitting there in PPE, trying to get people to get out and get the vote. All the while, people are standing in line with just face masks, because voting is more important than staying home right now. And so that's like one half of it. The other half of it is that we literally watched as armed men with their AK-47s and their assault rifles went up to our state capitol here, that you can see from the front porch right here, to protest having to put face masks on their faces to ensure that, you know, we keep communities safe. So really what this is just like calling that behavior out, because that's just really weird behavior of like professionals are literally telling you that people are dying from this respiratory disease, and your response to that is to have a temper tantrum.
Yeah, because we couldn't open businesses.
Because it made the money unhappy.
And then, like, literally just a few months later, also in Madison, we watched our friends get tear gassed as they went to go protest after George Floyd was killed. Yeah. And, like, that wasn't okay that we were protesting that. But literally just 2 months before.
Guys with their guns get to surround the Capitol and have...
And spit in our cops' faces, berate them, scream at them. That was okay.
So I know this is a podcast where we get political, but that is like this.
Yeah, we could talk politics. Don't worry. That's what I enjoy. You're diving into what I enjoy talking about. Yeah. I enjoy talking about all of it, but you got but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. It feels unfortunately like a very timeless song because like we just performed it for the first time since recording it live at our album release show, and I'm just sitting there playing the whole time, like thinking about what's happening in Gaza and Lebanon, and the fact that like Appalachia is like underwater, has been underwater.
We're
and
not
like,
sending aid.
We're not sending aid
we can't be part of, like, we can't be,
but we can send like
billions
to Israel to just like be our proxy.
Do you guys want to know? Do you all want to know a fun stat on that? That'll make you really. I'm sure you maybe have already seen this. It seems like you're into these things.
Yeah,
so on Today of All Days, that's right. Yeah, I didn't put out a statement about Palestinian liberation today of all days, like on my socials. That totally had normal reactions to me and DMs and all that stuff. Some people said that, or some experts said about $9 billion needed to be allocated, or that they were short $9 billion for the allocation for the people of Appalachia after which, by the way, they're getting hit by another hurricane
right now,
this week, right now,
Milton,
as we're recording this. $9 billion, and we just sent $8.7 billion to Israel. So it's like literally, I don't like to I think like right wing people are annoying because they always like want to nitpick money when really they don't want just money to go to bombs. But like, if you want to do that, let's do that right there. Right. You know what I mean? If you want to have the conservative argument on that, let's do it. You know what I mean? And it's like, don't get me started. But like, it's like,
for Republicans,
you know what
that's
I mean?
Supposed to be their base. You know, like, what are you doing?
So I guess you could say, what is it all for?
What is it all for?
What is it all for?
So,
again, like you said, unfortunately,
you spent it already. No, literally, what Alex said about this song being timeless. Like, we could literally probably go back into the song, dissect it, and make words rhyme to basically explain what is happening right now, and it's still going to be what is it all for, because I'm not really sure anymore.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not in our best interest.
No. Never has been.
No. So it doesn't make the money happy.
My answer is usually guillotines, so I'm not the person to ask.
Let's get the guillotines back. Let's go. Eat the rich.
Yeah. No, but I mean, seriously though, like to like what you all said, it was apparently okay in 2020 to protest, that your barbershop wasn't open or that you wanted to go to the gym. That was allowed, but then they all of a sudden started talking about. They started talking about how disgraceful it was, or how it was unhealthy during a pandemic for the George Floyd protest, the BLM protest, 2020 protest, whatever people want to throw out there for the name of it. When literally like healthcare professionals were like, but the murder of black people in this country is a pandemic. So this actually, like, if you're doing a cost, if you're doing an analysis, it's just, let alone like, what's going on now, like you said, with Gaza, and not just Gaza, but also, you all live in Madison area, or in Madison, you said you could see the Capitol from, like what they're doing
on my front
and what
porch.
they're labeling.
The first lyrics of that song.
Right. But like labeling, I don't know how it is at UW in general, but like labeling, student protesters over the past year to a T today. As we record this on October 7th, I should say that for the recording. Well, that's why we're saying today, yada yada, with this conversation, is that, like, again, that is not allowed. That's not okay. that's horrible. That's this and that. But bombing people to oblivion for a year straight. That's okay. That's self-defense, right?
Yep.
So to go back to the music before I go on my
Yep,
soapbox and pull it out and stand on it.
We could spend another hour on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if you ever want to talk about that, you're more than welcome to come back on here
let's do it.
specifically to talk about these things as well. But again, to go back to the song, like that's where songs like this, like I say this way too often when people kind of have a politically or like social commentary charged song. Unfortunately, it's timeless. So unfortunately, people will get a lot out of this for years to come. Yeah. That's unfortunate from a global space, but that's great from a songwriting perspective that you were able to kind of deliver that in a way that is thoughtful. Again, like I said, not generic, but can fit for, as we just stated, numerous accounts of hypocrisy in the face of social justice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thanks for going over that one. I figured that's what I figured it was about, but I also figured with knowing. Sorry, what was that?
Oh no, we were just like, yep.
Yeah, right. I figured with your band, what I've seen from you all on socials, there'd at least be one song like that on here as well. So I appreciate you going over.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, man, I'm losing my voice. The next song we move on here is "Sweet Thrill." This one you have labeled, at least lyrically, by both Kat and Alex. Yep. Really enjoy this. This is another one that is more of like I don't want to call it a ballad, but sort of a more somber song. Really enjoy it. This is track 5.
Yeah.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So kind of like if you're looking at a vinyl, sort of like the end of the first half, right?
Correct.
Like feels like kind of the
we got the
kind
rise
of change
and
of
the
pace
fall.
there a little bit.
Yeah, the rise and the fall and the rise and the fall.
I'm trying to make the joke stick. I don't think they believe in me. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
But just you both, and as well, Benjamin, if you have anything to say about the song, kind of speak to what the song means to you and what the background is there as well.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know, just an example of a time where I think, this would probably be around like right before pandemic time or during pandemic time, where I was like, hey, I have a bunch of like lyrics and I struggle to put them to music, and y'all are good at that. So if you want to use the lyrics, if it's helpful, here's a bunch of stuff that I feel comfy sharing with you. And so I gave it to Kat, possibly Benjamin too, I can't remember, but Kat came back to me and was like, hey, so I used part of these lyrics to make this song. What do you think? And so the first stanza verse is something that I wrote. And then Kat wrote the entire song around it.
Cool.
And like what I wrote was about a former partner of mine, and then they ended up writing a bunch about a mutual friend of ours.
A mutual ex.
A mutual ex, the sad lesbian music. It gotta be on brand.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's currently a dear friend.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of how it happened. You had like the melody and everything. Like when Kat writes a song, they like mostly, like with the exception of like the ones we already talked about, like Therapy, like you just have the whole song package.
Try to.
It's good
if I can. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this was another example of that. And so yeah, it virtually didn't change much aside from like adding the instrumentation and messing around in the studio with the spriggy synths.
Yeah, I feel like there's also one that we may or may not have entertained the idea of not having it on the album. And I feel the same way. I feel the same way about What Is It All For?
Maybe,
we just weren't sure.
Yeah.
With those costume, What Is It All For, and Sweet Thrill at some point.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah.
Because we were like, it's such a soft, more reminiscent of the Libra and Miles Away early stuff, more folky, singer-songwriter-y. But again, I'm glad that you picked up on, like, because we did think about like the vinyl structure of like, you kind of have like the end of the first side and
then you get to the start of the second side.
Yeah. So it's nice to have kind of like, we just came off of these like 3 really big anthemic songs about healing and like finding yourself, and then you have this really like kind of angry like political song, and then it's it's nice to have that kind of moment of softness. Yeah.
That kind of brings me to another, and thanks for going over that. And it's interesting that you're both able to collaborate on a song that, like you said, is essentially about the same
Yeah.
person. But again, obviously, you wrote it in a way that can connect to people outside of that space, which I always appreciate. How important to you and how meticulous were you with the track listing and how you ordered them? Because it felt very meticulous. You know, it felt very like, I mean, it felt very well thought out is what I mean, you know, because like I said, I always feel like it's great when you can hear it on a vinyl and it feels like a great EP and you flip it over and then there's another great EP in some ways. Not that it should sound exactly the same, but how important was that for you all? It sounds like
we were really intentional about it. We did lots of like ranked choice voting.
We did lots of list making over the years. Actually, we did it multiple times.
And part of it was because going back to what I mentioned earlier, like we were worried that it would feel disjointed, and we were like, this needs to be put together in the right way to make it feel like a cohesive story, which we'll come back to again with like the first and the last song. We're really intentional with that, but
definitely thought about the vinyl structure, which we'll get to in the next song.
Well, that brings us to the next song. Swimming 2, which I'm guessing this, when you say Swimming 2, is this a sequel to Swimming for My Life?
Yes.
Is that the case? Okay. I figured as much. Kind of, you know, for people that haven't checked out the band before or aren't overly familiar, what's the connection there? Again, this one lyrically is Kat, which would make sense since the previous song was probably in the days of where you were writing all the material for the most part.
That was pre-Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. That's what I thought. You know, what's the connection there between the two? If there needs to be a background from the other song to this one, then just kind of speak to the message behind this song.
So for Miles Away, you know, there was a small collection of songs that I did with a friend in his basement with a, you know, very cheap recording software and like with instruments that we had around us. And it was my first real thing that I was able to put together, and it came together not long after I came up with the name Cat and Hurricane. So I was like, all my friends are doing this, I'm going to do it too. And so from that collection, from Miles Away, I think Swimming for My Life is one that I would always come back to and always have reoccurring in sets. And whether I'm doing it like as a solo or if Ben and I were doing like an acoustic thing, it just stuck with us and it just kept coming up for me of like one of the more memorable songs from the album. And so with having brought it with me for all these years and keep playing it, it just, you know, kind of came up in conversation of like, it'd be really cool to like re-record this and like really do it up. Because it's very soft and folky and like haunting and somber on Miles Away, and I think we really gave it a fresh paint of coat, coat of paint, if you will, of like making it shiny and new. And then fun fact about this song, everything from Miles Away is about a long distance relationship that I had with a boy when I was in middle school and high school. That didn't come to fruition, but that we're still really good friends to this day. But that's just a fun fact about what it's about. It's about a long distance relationship and how it was not sustainable because we were kids and we were never going to be able to seriously make it happen. But yeah, that's why it came with us. And it's such a hard hitting song to flip over the vinyl on the B-side to have it come in with the kick drum and the clapping, and it's just like it's like, oh, here we go again, like here comes the energy.
I don't even think when y'all recorded that, I don't even know if we intended it to be an intro to the track. I can't remember.
I don't remember
but
either.
when Matt throws these two in the vocal booth, like magic happens. Like you just like throw on a couple angel vocals. Just throw on a couple cool filters and like really, really, really like slow everything down and layer it. And so that was a demo kind of moment. So, and actually I think we made the like more punked up version. Like I think that was a choice to like more Cathify it when we started playing it in live sets.
Because we've been playing that song live as a full band, and we were like, it kind of just turned into that of what it became now on this album. So we knew that we wanted to re-record that one. Honestly, that one has been on the track list for a long time.
Really long
time. We knew we wanted it. We just
didn't know where it lived.
So I'm just so silly I didn't realize this from listening to I hadn't listened to that, that initial like first batch of songs you had released in a while. So this is a re-recording of that. For some reason to me, like it felt so different.
Yeah,
I thought it was like a sequel, but it's literally like a re-recording. That's really cool. That's even cooler in some ways that I didn't even notice, and I had listened to the original one before. I'm sure if I had the lyrics pulled up when I listened to the first one, I would have realized that.
Yeah,
no. That's still really cool that you're able to pull that song back after playing it live differently for so long, kind of give it a new life that it still like totally fits the rest of the album, despite it being a song that you had recorded when did that come out?
2013 is I think when I initially recorded it, but I didn't release it until 2017.
Yeah,
and it like
right
to be very
the miles
20 to be very meta about it too. I feel like the inclusion of this on the album, and especially sort of starting the second half, is like just an example of like what we're writing about, especially with like Caffeine and On My Way Back, about like learning to reconcile past versions of yourself.
So I was wrong. Sorry 2 is actually the oldest song on the
Swimming 2.
Swimming. Sorry 2.
Yes.
Swimming 2.
Wow, we've been wrong this whole time.
No, I knew that.
I didn't know that. I've been writing the press the whole time.
Oh my God, that's so silly.
All right.
But yeah, it's the oldest song on the. But it is
the trivia was wrong on our stories then.
Wait.
No one got it right because it wasn't an option.
Whoops.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. No. We'll figure it out. Anyway.
Well,
it's the same.
You heard it.
It's the same song. Yeah.
Same song.
Yeah. That's so cool though that you're like you said you first kind of recorded it or put it together in 2013 and in 2024 you're able to throw it on a record and it fits perfect. Like we were talking about timeless earlier. You're talking about timeless. Yeah. That's fantastic.
It's so fun to have it in the set again. I really like. We stopped playing a couple songs, Sweet Thrill, I Wasn't Ready, and Swimming, which were part of our live sets going into the pandemic and a little bit after it maybe. And we were like, we have to stop because no one can know that this is going to be on the album. Like, we're not going to surprise people. And I'm glad we did, but I'm glad we can play, especially Swimming. That one's a banger. It's so fun to play.
It's a fun one. And like you said, flipping the vinyl over, this is the start. Fucking great. Fantastic. So cool. And again, like I for 2020 or 2013, you say you're 30 now. That would have been like what? I can't do math.
I think I was like 21.
21, 20, something like that.
It was like 2013 or 14 that I wrote this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what's cool is you're able to bring back a song that you wrote from basically a different era of your life, and it fits with like your current era of your life. You know what I mean? And there's something about that that's really cool with songwriting that, like, a lot of other things of your life you'd wish would never come back from your former self of 2013, 2014, I'm sure. But when you can pull back a song and realize, like, lyrics are great, you can make it into, like, something that fits the album structurally well from like, the instrumental aspect and the melody aspect. Like, that's just so fucking cool. That's great. Kudos to you. I was not that good at songwriting in 2013. That brings us, though, to what I would say is the biggest sort of departure on the album when it comes to the genre or the sort of style on the album. You've got a very, like, I don't know if you guys would agree with this, with my description of this, but sort of like a, R&B hip hop song for the most part. Like, I'm guessing obviously the feature you have here, which is, I don't know how to say that.
Kilo, aka Skittles.
That's what I thought it was, but I'm glad you said it for me before I said something way off. But Kat, you wrote the lyrics along with them, Kilo, aka Skittles, which the rap portions on this are really cool. I thought the lyrics were really cool.
There was some concepts and your part costume from Alex too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We've tried to figure this out a couple times.
Yeah.
We're pretty sure.
Like, sometimes we lose the plot of the song of like who started where. But there's definitely some Alex concepts in the song as well.
This one, obviously, the lyrics touch on a lot of identity. I know that all three of you are queer, non-binary, and it felt like there's a lot of that in this song as it relates to kind of not just finding your identity, finding things about yourself as you kind of learn more about yourself, but also how it seems like a little bit of the world is seeing you, or people that you knew prior to what Benjamin talked a little bit with Caffeine and Alcohol, or what you and I talked about at length on the episode you and I did together about sort of the reality of even close friends, you know, and I'm saying this is someone that is just the whitest dude, but from what I know from friends and when I talk to people, you know, it can be a mix of emotions, kind of what you talked about with Caffeine and Alcohol, where you're becoming more honest with yourself. You're having these realizations. You feel more free. You feel more in your own skin. And yet at the same time, people that you felt like were close to you, or just society at large, especially now with political polarization, unfortunately, on things that shouldn't be that way, in my view, you know, it can kind of be a cycle of emotions and a cycle of both negative and positive things going on when you're going through all that. I might have that all wrong. Again, I need to stop putting words in your mouth before I ask you questions. But kind of speak to what the song's about. Am I kind of hitting that well? Where does the song come from? And kind of what was the writing process with you and the feature here when it comes to the lyrics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think part of this song comes from like a little bit of an angry place. And again, you know, writing this, like maybe more, I mean, COVID never ended, right? So like the pandemic, but this was definitely in the pandemic.
It was, yeah. I remember us like sitting in here and like playing
here
around with like the concepts of the song, and I think that's where like no matter what I do, I feel like a costume.
Yeah, writing down things that like ways that straight people have made us feel, or the weird questions they ask us that are like invasive, and like, will I wake up and leave my house, and will I return because of violence, and will I make it through the day unscathed without, you know, being harassed or maybe assaulted for just looking the way I do, because it's confusing to someone else that has a vendetta on anybody that looks or sounds different than them.
Yeah.
So
we're a touring band. Like, we have to stop at gas stations and use the restroom like all the time, and every time I'm just like,
we have to.
What's it gonna be today?
We have to make sure that we like try to look ahead and see what could be a safer option to like stop at. It's just like things that I don't feel like a lot of cis people have to think about on a regular basis, because they can just waltz right in and not think twice about it. But we definitely do have to be a little on edge with certain places that we go, especially outside of the Madison area. Like, obviously we feel to an extent more safe here than we would in like rural Wisconsin or anywhere down south.
Yeah. And we tried to be, I remember this was one that definitely had a lot of group sessions where we were jamming, because I wrote the piano part for this, the initial like you know, do thing like that. I wrote that probably 10 years ago. I've had that, and that was originally I had like pieces of a song that I didn't like the lyrics, that I had like, but I really liked the chords and I really liked that kind of beat. And at the time it was like more of a sort of indie rock. I don't know if you know the Rocket Summer, but that's a band that I've loved for many years.
Absolutely.
So it was very the Rocket Summer, and so that's where that.
No, it was Phoebe Bridgers in the Key of Ben Folds.
Yes, that was the working title.
The Key of Ben. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So we had this I had this chord progression, and when we first started, there was a little hot dog diner in Michigan where we sat down together and had food on a little tour, and we were like, we decided like we're gonna do an album. What songs do we have? And we like kind of laid out on the table like pieces of little chord structures that we had. We knew we had pieces of therapy, and like we were trying to gather what we could work with. And I was like, well, I have this chord progression that I really like, but I don't like the lyrics. It could be a song. And so we sat on that for so long, and we were like, had come up with the like, no matter what I do, I feel like a costume. And we knew we wanted to write it about like, okay, we're moving through the world as musicians, as queer, as trans.
It was totally going to be about something else, too. Like, the hook was totally different.
Yeah, the hook came much later.
Yeah, much
the
later.
Hook of it now.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to be really careful of, like, not writing something in this really gimmicky space about, like, identity politics or whatever. And I think what it really captures, at least for me, is, like, that the onus is not so much on us. We're not so much writing about like, this is what it feels like to be trans, like, but rather of like, this is what it feels like to see the world responding to like who I am.
Right.
So like we're not so it's not so much a confessional as it is more of a like this is what the world feels like as me, and ending with that inversion of like, you know, no matter what I do, I feel like a costume. You know what that feels like. Now maybe you do, of like, you know,
because we've explained it.
Yeah, because we had to literally break it down. Like I don't know. I think that yeah, it can be heard of as like, oh, trans people are just like kind of like pandering to cis folks or whatever. But really, you have to break it down to make it like digestible. And I think that that's part of like the anger too. It just is just like, I shouldn't have to explain to you that we're human. Like I just shouldn't have to explain this to you. But here I am, you know.
And we knew, and so
it's like sitting there with a cigarette in your hand, head in your hand. Like, all right,
literally.
here's what it is.
like I'm gonna do this
Motherfucker.
once.
Yeah.
Listen closely. No, but like we had built it up, and then you know with that beat, like I said, it started more of this kind of like indie pop punk like Rocket Summer sound, and then I don't even remember what happened first, chicken and egg situation, but Matt
had always been like, y'all need to write a hip hop
because he's worked in that space a
Yeah.
lot, and so he wrote the beat, like he did the drum production, a lot of the drum production on that over the piano part that I did, and we were like, oh, actually and we were like, you know who would be good for that, and so Kilo, aka Skittles, is another artist from Madison. Who it's Kilo stands for Keep It Lesbian Only, and so she's another queer artist that we performed together a lot of shows.
We go way back.
She performed at our Sorry EP release show.
Yep.
So we've been friends for a long time, and she's a fantastic artist, and she's really lyrical and like melodic in the way that she raps, and so we were like, this would actually fit really, really well with the kind of like beat that Matt wrote. So.
Yeah, and Matt recommended.
Yeah,
like
and
that
she
we
knew her
worked with
too.
Kilo, like way before. Like he knew that we knew Kilo. He's like, you know who you should work with, and like Kilo, like like.
And so we sent her the song, and we gave her the concept of like what we're writing about, and then she sent that back, and that is the take that we used in the song. She didn't rewrite anything. That's what she gave us, and we're like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Change nothing. So it's just,
I love it.
It's a gem.
Yeah, I think that it just, one, amazing to work with Kilo, so fun to collab, and I think like I can't imagine the song without her, because like to share in the same track as we're talking about like, hey, this is why it sucks being in this really transphobic world, and here's what it feels like to have like a Black queer woman be like, also here's what it's like to be me in, you know, America, and specifically even in queer America. Like that line, "I'm what the rainbow's missing," Django edition, is like so good.
That's such a good line.
Yeah,
I was like blown away when I was looking at the lyrics, and like I was so good. Yeah, they knocked it out of the fucking park, as you all did as well.
And it's really fun to have her perform it with us. So she's performed that with us a handful of times.
Oh, really?
Now.
Yeah. It's so fun.
It's so good. It's like when she like she's not visible until it's time for her to come up on stage, and when she comes up on stage, people lose their goddamn minds.
It's so fun.
Like this is like,
that's so cool
for Madison, for as big and for as small as this music community is, people do know who each of us are. So like this, that's why this was such an exciting collaboration, because we both have been voted best whatever in like the area music awards. So she's like won best hip hop artist of the year, and so to see this collaboration come together, it's just been so much fun to watch people's jaws drop at like how just like how much it makes sense.
Yeah, that's such a like goosebump moment as an artist too, when you get to see someone come up on stage and people just lose their fucking minds. Like, what's cooler than that? You know? And collaborations live are always just like so fun. Like that's just anyone else like jumping on stage, grabbing a mic and doing their thing. It's like, who doesn't love that? That's so cool. To go back to a little bit of what you were saying on the specifics of the lyrics, I do like what you said that like, I think it was you, Benjamin, that said, you know, we're not trying to make like an identity politics song of like, you know, here's my confessional as someone who's, you know, within the trans community, or, you know, anybody part of the LGBTQIA plus community or anything of that nature. It's more of like lived experience, which I think is what people need to hear, right? Because like as much as maybe the people that need to hear this are going to scoff and say, some dumb shit no matter what you say, or like you said, like, you know, like touring and all that kind of stuff. I think it's great to kind of come at it from that perspective of like, I don't have a fucking problem, you have a problem, and you need to sit down and listen, kind of deal, right? Like, or like, hear our perspective, etc. This song is super good because it's got that hip hop attitude to it, which fits really well, and yet it's not like it's not missing the elements sonically of you all from your other songs. That's what's cool about it. It's like it's not like coming out of the blue. It's like Cat and the Hurricane are doing a hip hop song. Here we go.
I'd like to also add to that, like, it's like the super R&B hip hop, but then with the chord progression going into like what feels like this classical, like like almost like a musical chorus. And it also somehow feels like you're in church all of a sudden. I really like that all of those came together. And so it's just like one of those songs that you can't really pin down in one genre definitively. So I really like messing with people's minds. Like how you were saying, like, we can't be pigeonholed. We refuse.
Yeah. It's also like a, you know, like slap in the face to like religious transphobes too, of like, I don't know. We can do the gospel thing too. Literally taking that thing. You know?
Literally using the prayer of like, now I lay me down to sleep, pray my soul to keep, right? Like kind of incorporating that in of like, you guys want to cherry pick, I'm going to cherry pick back a little bit, you know?
I love that. I love when people can artistically be petty. I love, you know what I mean? Like, I love when you can have, and I'm not saying it's petty about anything surface level. It's being petty about something that really matters. But it's great when you can make music and kind of put up a middle finger with somebody's own stuff. Like, I love when people are able to do that. You know, you kind of hear that from like politically charged rappers a lot with their music, where they'll kind of like turn a phrase of like conservative stuff all the time or whatever, and that's what this is right there with that line. That's so good, you know.
So another cool fact about this song is that in the beginning, when you hear the drum beat and you hear like what sounds like vocalizations, right, but you can't really make it out, that's something that Matt is really proud of. So what he did is he went and he like YouTubed like
school board meetings
where parents were coming and complaining about trans kids in school and like the bathroom bullshit,
and
the book bans.
And so he took that and he put it to a drum machine and basically made the words go to our like.
The drums are programmed.
The
drums are programmed with the tiers of transphobes.
So we're quite literally using their words against them.
I love that so
I know,
much.
we almost forgot
That's so sick.
He asked us, he was like, you gotta tell people that.
Yeah.
It's so...
I love those little nuggets. Yeah. You know, that's so sick. That's so sick. Really cool. That's awesome. Somebody in the chat here, Bluesbro, who's also been another guest on Twitch, just says that's next level, and I absolutely agree. That is next level.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
So smart.
Yeah, shout out to Austin there too. That's great. All right, next song. I wasn't ready. This one you have. Let's see here. Lyrics were again by Kat. Primarily, it looks like. Just go ahead and speak to where this song comes from, kind of the lyrical inspiration. And I feel like I ask the same questions every time, but etc. You know what I'm asking.
Yeah. So for this one is about a relationship, a fling, if you will, and it didn't really play out the way that I think the person that I was dating thought it was going to. There were a lot of preconceived expectations that weren't exactly voiced at the beginning. So when it did expire, it just felt like we were dating and then we were just like planning to break up. Like the whole relationship was just planning to break up, and it just felt like just like a great person, but a wrong time for it to happen. And so that there was just no future in it, but like we did enjoy each other's time, but it wasn't going to go any farther than that. So it just like made, I feel both of us really feel like, well, I just wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready for you. I just wasn't. And this was like midst of pandemic. Yeah. So like that was an added layer of like how just insane everything felt, of like, you know, there was a period of time where we were we were quarantining.
Yeah,
we were quarantining together.
Here. Yeah.
And so that, just like a person that was like supposed to be like a short fling became like in that moment a really important person of like, we're going through this together. This is a messed up thing that's happening. And then also it was just like, it had an expiration date on it. It's not any expiration date that I had voiced, but it was voiced from the other side of like, well, this is going to end eventually, so we might as well break it off now. And I'm like, that's a really weird way to go about it. Maybe that's too much detail for literally the longest song on the album with the least amount of lyrics.
Yeah.
But
there's not a whole lot of lyrics, but you get that from the...
Yeah, it's just like, I wasn't ready for this person. I wasn't ready for the expectations. It was supposed to be... It just didn't have to be as hard as it was, and it was. So the bridge in it, you take what you need from everyone you meet, and then it's goodbye, and that's all right. It's just like, that's just how it happens with some people in our lives. We share the time that we have, and then it's just time to move on through to the next thing.
One thing I will say about this, obviously, like you said, not a whole lot of lyrics to this song. Great song instrumentally, though. Like,
Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely love it.
It's our Evanescence moment.
Yeah, hey, I absolutely love that band. So I'm here for that. But that concept, especially in that, that tagline, like you said, you take what you need from everyone you meet, then it's goodbye and that's all right. If only a lot of people had the appreciation of that, as opposed to having more toxic views on things like this after the fact, where just because, whether it's a friendship, relationship, whatever, just because something ends or something fizzles out doesn't mean it was like this horrible existence, or that person's awful, or it needs to be this dramatic thing. It's like, it can be sad to you. You can have an emotional, varying emotions to it, but it's good to accept that, like, this was a part of my life. There were good things about it. There were bad things about it.
Yeah.
I'm a different person, whatever spectrum afterwards. It's, and that's life, right? Like, that's being an adult, like, especially in relationships. So again, I am super repetitive on this, but great relatable song, and also like a mature look at something that somebody else could definitely write a more toxic version of those lyrics with the same song. You know what I'm saying? And that brings us though to the last full song on the record, Smoke, which you had previously talked about, is sort of, this is, for me, I say this on this podcast a lot when we're breaking down albums or EPs. Oftentimes, 9 times out of 10, either the first track or the last track of a release tends to be my favorite, because I really like anthems. I really like songs that like kick you in the face kind of deal. But also, whenever people have a song at the end of a record, especially you all that clearly put a lot of time into the track listing, the end one sort of ends up being like the one that, like, whether it's an individual artist or a collaboration between you all, might be the one that people that you really enjoy, that you're not sure if anyone else will, but it's like cathartically great for you. And to me, that tends to be like what I like the most, is when bands are like fully like, this is just a song I'm going to make for me. I don't give a fuck if anybody else, that kind of thing. That's what like album enders are a lot. So this one is my favorite on the record, along with What's It All For, which I'm sure that's so surprising that I'd like the politically charged song. But speak to what this one's about. I know you said it almost wasn't on the record, which I find surprising because it's fantastic. But kind of this was from both. Oh, this was Benjamin and Alex, actually. You wrote the lyrics on this one. So speak to what this one's about and the background on it for me.
Yeah, so this, I think, all started in the early days of the pandemic. Kat and I, when we lived together, we would live stream some acoustic shows, because we were actually on our first regional tour after the release of the Libra EP when the pandemic hit. We got 3 shows in and we had to call it quits.
March 13th.
Yeah.
Great time.
2020.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Amazing time to go on an album release tour. Our very first one. We had some really good shows that we had to cancel. So we still wanted to like do music and perform in the ways that we could, and we wanted to promote our band. We just put out an album, a small one, but so we were doing these like little live stream shows, and Kat was like goofing around. I say that so casually, but it ended up being the basis of the Smoke track on this really cool guitar riff. And so we would like jam together during some of the lives. And like we would send videos to Ben and be like, what do you think of this? Like it's really cool. We don't know what to do with it. And so it was the like verse guitar riff, and then what ended up being the chorus, and then also track 10. And we were just like, what do we do with this? And so we ended up, once we were able to start like hanging out in person, we ended up having this like really funny writing session. Like we still have the piece of paper that we ended up doing like a little ideation session on. We were like thinking that we wanted to write a song about trauma, or like I don't know, just the idea. And I was like, hey, y'all, what do you think of this like idea of like trauma or a traumatic experience being something that just kind of like follows you around? You think you're kind of done with it or over it, but then it'll like pop up out of nowhere, or you'll be reminded of something, and you'll have feelings about it, but it might be a little bit different or further removed than when it was maybe a little fresher or more raw, right? But it kind of just trails behind you. And so that's kind of how we came up with the idea of like smoke and fire, like kind of like seeing smoke, but there's no fire. And that metaphor. And then Ben, you took over from at that point.
Yeah, this I think is also becoming, now that the whole album is out, maybe my favorite song on the record too, because it like, and we put it at the end, like Therapy is where the album gets its name from, and we knew that like we had both of these songs are the two that we were most unsure of going into the studio.
They were not finished.
Of like what they were going to sound like. We were stuck on both of them for different like, little reasons about just more instrumentally. We were stuck on it, but so this was another instance where Alex had some lyrics. Actually, this was multiple songs.
Actually, you gotta go back to the melody.
Yeah, so this is like a bunch of songs cut together, and the reason it's at the end, and the reason I feel like this is the most like the heart of the album, we like to say that like Therapy is like the theme of the album and Smoke is the heart, because like Smoke Kat had the riff and Kat had the guitar, and it had this kind of like droning, really like indie pop bedroom guitar sound. And I had a song that was like about it was called Sitting in Your Car Going Nowhere, was like the title of my note. And I had just a bunch of lyrics that were unfinished about this feeling of sitting in your car where you're still stuck in the driveway, either leaving from somewhere or wanting to go somewhere but not being able to go. And this feeling of just like being stuck, and
dissociating in your car.
Yeah, dissociating in your car.
After you get home.
And,
relatable.
And Alex had a bunch of lyrics that were about what you were just talking about, where like things follow you. And we were like, these are kind of talking around the same kind of thing. So we had this brainstorm sesh, wrote all these lyrics out. And then, on the music side a little bit too. So Kat and Alex sent me the video of them playing it. And this was when we were still like quarantining separately. And so they sent me videos. And I had no idea what chords Kat was playing. And Kat never do. And so I played the completely wrong chords, and I was playing a much more major riff to it. And so I ended up writing this melody that was like very musical theater-y. And using some of my lyrics from the song that I kind of cut, and using some of Alex's lyrics, and I sent it back to them. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But then we went to try to play it, and we're like, this isn't really the same song. And so we kind of went back and forth on that in pieces until we actually got in the studio, and Matt kind of helped us be like, no, this can be the same song. And we found kind of like a happy medium. And I think what is so beautiful about it is it's this like, the melody sounds really major and happy and upbeat, but then like the guitars kind of betray that it's a very like kind of like sulking kind of thing. And you have all of these songs about healing and finding yourself, and these politically charged songs about how the world sees you, and songs about relationships that have passed that but then you come to Smoke, and it's just about how like healing from those things is not linear. And that's really like what we come back to, of like, you can say that you've moved on, you can say that you've worked through it, you can say like, I'm happy for you, like I have no ill will towards you, and yet you are still going to have those days where it just like fucks you up. And you're still going to have those days where it's just like still there. And for me, that's really like what all of this is about. We're not just, because it feels like it could be cliche to be like, we're writing an album about mental health, that it's just like you need to learn to talk to someone and like work through it and then you'll be fine. But that's not at all. Like putting this as the last track leaves it with that sort of open-ended. It's like it's never like, you know, I'll be okay someday, you know, like it's got that sort of like nothing is fully settled. And I just love that it has little pieces of Alex's story and my story and Kat's story also kind of like worked in there.
Yeah, and the writing of this was wild because we had no idea what we were doing for the bridge until we had to like finish it. We had a deadline.
We knew we wanted the overlapping like icy smoke all the time.
Yeah, and I had the melody ideas for that.
And then we were like, it feels like it needs something else.
So,
and we were like, what if there was another verse? And while we were in the studio, we're like, it needs to like go back into the chorus. We really struggled with the transitions of the song. Like, how do we get back to the chorus? And Alex and I were furiously writing like, oh, this could work, this could work. And I was like, everyone stop, turn on the microphone. And, you know, we go into the studio and we just like, we came up with that like.
Just when I think I'm getting better, you are tracing the circles in my blank stares, half there. Conversations with myself in a parked car. I know.
I hope you're better,
but I don't need to hear about it. You're nowhere near me now, but I'm still ready for the fire.
And all of that was like pieces that we had ended up cutting from other notes, and we were just like we're just like
and stuff like I wrote like, and then you were like, here, let me just write this in my own words.
We're like in the control room, just like writing this down.
Literal pad paper.
And that's like I think my favorite moment of the entire record.
Yeah, it was really crunched, and I think it needed to be. Like I think we have
worked under pressure.
We needed to work under pressure because like we are very much ideas people, and sometimes you just gotta, you know, hit record,
put the rubber to the road, kind of
and
deal,
see what happens.
No, I mean that melody, that metaphor of the smoke, even when there's no fire, I thought was very, very like. I always love when people can say a lot with a few words. I'm not able to do that, but luckily I do music where I can scream like 64 words and a little riff, and then you're good. I don't have to think about it like you guys do. But that was such a perfect encapsulation of what the song's about. You know, when you're talking about trauma, you're talking about these, you know, whether it's, you know, from all sides of the spectrum of where that could come from. I think that's such a good metaphor of, even when the fire's gone, you feel the smoke surrounding you at times, and like you said, at other times, you think it's all gone, and then why is it so? Like I thought that was just so good and so perfect. Great end to the album. Great relatable track, like you said. It's really cool to hear that one was so collaborative. It also was a time crunch in the studio. Appreciate you all going over that. Obviously, there's the outro as well. There's some spoken words, I think, from you, Benjamin, on the end of it. I know it's like a minute long, but that kind of wraps up the record. Was there anything that you kind of wanted to say about that outro, or why that was in there for the end of the song, or the end of the song?
Originally, the scratch track vocals for that was us doing the chocolate scene from SpongeBob SquarePants. So there's a TikTok
that I
floating
really had to fight them not to leave in.
We couldn't. I didn't want to get sued. I didn't want to get a cease and desist letter.
That's fair. That's
like, we just wanted to
it's technically still.
Paramount would definitely come after you, so I do.
It should hopefully technically still be in there.
It is technically in there. It's just completely drowned out.
There's a lot of layers. Yeah. We wanted to do like the very like Midwest emo thing, and this is actually part of. So Kat wrote like this other sort of riff as part of Smoke.
Like this prog rock, like alternative like thing.
But then the way that I ended up writing the melody, it just like went in a very different direction of the sort of more like, you know, musical theater, like big chorus. It's kind of went in a different direction. So we were like, we still really liked it. So we wanted to use it. And then the voice tracks or voicemails or whatever are all just like, some of them are lyrics from the album, like there's Kat reading some or like yelling some lyrics from Therapy. We've got some of the lyrics from Caffeine in there, I think. And then we also have some like rejected lyrics from songs that we didn't end up using. So we just kind of like layered them, and it's kind of this like things left unsaid kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. I thought the little instrumentation and it was really cool. I just, you know, obviously I didn't. and it would make sense you wouldn't type all those discarded lyrics and all this stuff out. But I was just like, I just kind of wonder what the story is with that. But it's good to know there's a little bit of SpongeBob.
There's definitely a little
somewhere.
bit of SpongeBob. Yeah, and we just knew we wanted the album to kind of like bleed into itself to kind of encourage a second listen. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of achieved that with the voicemail. Click of the phone thing.
And it clicks and then it goes back into therapy.
Yeah. So.
Well, and that's the other thing that's really cool. So does it loop?
Yes.
Really? Because obviously, when I listened to actually today, when I was listening through it in the car, it switched over to like a very screamy Coheed and Cambria song, like right afterwards, and I was like, wait, I don't remember this part of the record. But yeah, if you put it on loop or put it on repeat, it kind of ebbs right back into therapy, which is what I figured you did as we were talking about the track listing and vinyl. I think that's a cool thing when people do that. So again, all in all, this record is absolutely fantastic. I can't get enough out of it. I can't talk enough good things about it. I really hope. It seems like already, at least with one of the tracks, with Caffeine and Alcohol, you got a lot of traction with that. I hope some of the other songs kind of get the light of day in that same way. Because it's a really great record. I think anybody, regardless of what they listen to or what their preferences are, can get something out of this record or find at least a song or two if they're not into pop rock or indie rock, or I could throw out all the genres that they would really enjoy. So thanks for going over all this again. The debut record from Cat and the Hurricane, called "Got It Out," has been out since this past Friday, October 4th. You can pre-order the vinyl right now, right? You can stream it on all streaming platforms. The two things I'll ask you all, I appreciate your time on this. I know we're going a little bit longer than I said we would, so I appreciate your time on that. Is just go ahead and plug where people can find the band, socials, all that good stuff at the end of interviews. And then with every podcast episode, as Benjamin knows, I put a song at the end, so you can talk amongst yourselves or just choose what song you want to play at the end of this to wrap up the episode. And I just really appreciate your guys' time.
You want to do the plugs?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. You can find us at catandthehurricane.com and on all socials, Instagram, Facebook, not Twitter. That's different. I'll tell it to you. YouTube, TikTok. Cat and the Hurricane, all one word, Cat with a K. For Twitter, it's Cat T Hurricane because there is a character limit. And we are apparently on Threads. I refuse to open that site. I still have the old school Twitter on my phone, so we're just having a good time over here. But all of our music is available on all the streaming platforms. You can find our latest album, Got It Out, on there as well. And yeah, we also have a Bandcamp where we are selling our physical CDs. And then we will have a pre-order for the vinyl at some point, but currently.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Then sorry, I didn't mean to misspeak there. Yes, that will be up there at some point.
We have been teasing for a minute.
Yeah, no, I get you. And again, all that for anybody listening on the recorded side of things will be in the notes, both on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. And again, one more thing, just pick which song you want to play at the end of this.
Oh no.
One of those. Yeah.
Smoke.
Yeah.
We talked about it. It seems like I think that's one that a lot of people will enjoy. I think it's a very strong ender to an album, very strong ender to listening to you talk about the record in full. So yeah, we'll go with Smoke off of the debut album from Cat and the Hurricane, Got It Out, that is out now everywhere. Benjamin, Kat, and Alex, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
for having
much.
us.